PLM presents the first annual Pan-African Symposium. Straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. This year's theme is the state of Black America. What must be done and where do we go from here? 3 presentations, 1 progressive panel discussion. Dr. Oba T'shaka. Dr. T'shaka is an activist scholar, renowned public speaker, professor, workshop leader, author, organizer, and visionary of exceptional influence who addresses audiences in the United States, Britain, France, and Africa. Dr. T'shaka led the civil rights movement in San Francisco, which was a catalyst for the Black Power movement. For 38 years, Dr. T'shaka was a professor at San Francisco State University, where he is now Professor Emeritus. Mwalimu Baruti. Mwalimu K. Bomani Baruti is the co-founder and co-director of 𝐘𝐨𝐿𝐵𝐿 Institute, an independent African-centered, full-time and after-school homeschooling and tutorial program for middle and high schoolers. Over the last half-decade, Brother Baruti has also taught various African-centered evening classes for adults at the Institute and online. Brother Baruti is the author of 18 self-published books. Recognized for his dedication to the community, he has been keynote speaker, guest lecturer, and moderator for numerous forums, programs, and activities in a number of places around the country and world.
Measure progress.
Dr. Booker T. Coleman. 𝐘𝐨𝐿𝐵𝐿 Kamene was born with the name Booker T. Coleman Jr. He is a teacher, consultant, administrator, staff developer, and curriculum writer. Dr. Coleman has been an educator in Bronx, New York since 1979. He is now a staff developer at the Harriet Tubman Charter School in Bronx, New York. Over Dr. Coleman's long career in education, he has consulted many boards of education, schools, community, parent, and student groups. He has visited many classrooms around the country and implemented successful strategies in the teaching and learning process. He is firmly dedicated to the belief that culture plays a vital role in education and proudly credits many of his academic views to his teacher, the world-renowned educator and professor, John Henrik Clarke.
To present to him, just to try to drive the conversation, because like we say, we want this to be something that we can produce. We don't really know how we're going to go about doing it, but the answer that they give us, we're going to go, as an organization, we're going to go back, we're going to try to create this resolution, and the resolution will be composed of these answers. So we want to pretty much drive it because it's key things that we feel that we should be talking about, and it's key things we feel that should be answered for us as a people so we can be more effective in the work that we're doing in the communities to move our people forward. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to try to move right along. The first thing we want to do this is that I'm going to ask a question. We're just going in a line. Every one of you can answer that question. You know, but you're going to be hitting it from your own perspective. Sometimes you may say the same things. Sometimes they may disagree on some things. But the disagreement is not always a bad thing. It's just showing us 2 different ways to see something. It's up for us to take the best out of that and move forward. Because that's what this is about. Because one of the things that while we was talking about is that we got to be in the business of bringing about solutions and resolutions. That's the bottom line. We got to get out the condition that we are in. And to get out the conditions, we need the best minds working for us and their solutions. We got to learn how to utilize that for transformation of character, then transformation for community, then ultimately for nation. That sound good? Yes. All right, to move right along. The first question we're going to start with Booker T. Coleman. We're going to go down. What is the current?
Can I give deference to
Yes.
my elder to answer first?
Yes, we follow you. Okay.
And I'll give deference to mine.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. So I'm just going to put it out there, and we're going to let them work it out.
Okay.
I like this, though. That's how it's supposed to be. What is the current socio-political economic state of African people?
It's bad.
The current socio-economic state of African people is not what it should be. On the eve of independence, we were at the level where China was at, where Southeast Asia was at, where Korea was at, where Singapore was at. Africa was. And now Singapore has got an economy that cooks like a nation and is ahead of most of Europe. And China's going to replace the U.S. as the first world power in 20 years. Africa has the greatest amount of resources, close to 1 billion people, talented people, and if Africa had a basis for freeing up the people to have a say-so in running their economy, the basic say-so in running their society, Africa would be making progress leaps and bounds. So the stuff I laid out in my presentation speaks to part of what I think needs to happen. Here, we have to be careful when we analyze the position of blacks in this country. When Garvey did an analysis of our position when he traveled around the U.S., he concluded we were the most advanced Africans in the world. Best organized organizationally, we had the strongest economy, and we had the highest level of consciousness, and he attributed it to race consciousness. This was just a few years after slavery. So, you know, we need to understand that there's a lot of power we have. The problem, number one, with us and economic development, any kind of economy we have built up has been systematically attacked. I mean, if you're looking at Black Wall Street in Oklahoma, what white economy has had planes come in and drop bombs on it? If you look at black communities, Harlem, the Fillmore, which is the basis for the movement that I was a part of, and many other black communities, those communities sustained economies. Those communities were broken up. So what we need to understand is that in this country, black wealth is a political threat to this system, black wealth. And so, you know, we have to understand that. We are also the only people whose economy is only confined to us. Everybody else, the Mexican American, everybody will support their economy, Chinese Americans, and of course, we'll support whites sometimes before we'll support our own. But we're the only ones that will support our own. So that's a reality. So, you know, I think that central to whatever we do has got to be using our culture for economic development, rebuilding communities, and saving our youth, because most of our youth will survive based on what we're able to do to build up an economy. But let's not just put it off as our economy is weak because we don't support black business. It's been a war against black business.
Socioeconomic, and what was the other one?
Political.
Political.
Oh yeah, I only dealt with the economic.
Did you want to say something about politics?
Politics, problem with politics in the black community is that since the late 60s, heavy attacks occurred against the black liberation movement. So you had the murder and assassination of some very good black leaders. Black Panther, Malcolm X, King, a whole host of them. 3 assassination attempts were run on me, 3. Attempt to deny me a teaching credential, attempt to deny me tenure. So I understand that. So part of what happened is fear was driven into the black community. There's a book called Black Awakening in Capitalist America by a guy named Robert Allen. Who's read it? Yeah, one hand. You should read it because it shows how after systematically attacking liberation movement leaders, then the system went about creating a new type of leadership. This occurred through the Urban League and other groups. And so the first election for a black mayor was in Cleveland, Carl Stokes. Carl Stokes, blacks wanted a black mayor. The problem with Carl Stokes and many mayors like that, they had no movement experience. A Harold Washington was of a different breed. A Bobby Seale would have been of a different breed. And so as a result, a lot of our people felt they could invest their identification in the system and it would be safe, and at the same time they could accomplish something, and it accomplished very little in most cases. Hopefully Amiri Baraka's son in Newark will do something with that because he has some consciousness. But even if he does, the office of mayor can only do so much. The corporations run cities. And so the real power is in the streets. The real power is with our people. Socially, our families are weaker than they've ever been. We know that. And the forces that have hit us since '68 are primarily responsible, and the main force is economic. It's a fact that black men with the manufacturing jobs leaving the country don't have the kind of jobs where they can support their families, who are everyday trained industrial workers. And as a result, when they haven't had the jobs, they've left their family. There's a direct relationship between the loss of good paying jobs where a black man can support the family and the absence of a black man in the family, and a direct relationship to that and the prison industrial complex tied in with drugs. I'll just end on this. We never expected in the black liberation movement, Malcolm was a great prophet. He never prophesied that this would happen. None of us expected this kind of heavy hit. We weren't prepared. And the biggest lack of preparation is we didn't have a paramilitary force to defend ourselves against the violence reaped on our community. And that's literally what you needed to have to handle the drug traffic and to handle the police. Police review boards don't work. Stuffing police in garbage cans when they kill you, it does work. You understand? And I'm not suggesting you should do that. I'm a professor. And so I'm telling you scientifically what I think works. They only understand what they whip on you. And I've had my conflicts with the police. And please believe me, when I've had the upper hand, I ain't killed none, but I've taken the upper hand. And that's literally the organization we lack that we need. If we're going to build business, we have to have a self-protection unit that protects the businesses we build. Because when you get big enough, the mafia is going to come in on you, let alone big business. And you have to have a means to exact something on them to protect what you've got. And so the nation at least had the fruit, but the fruit couldn't handle that because the fruit wasn't armed. You know what I mean? And I'm not suggesting we go get an army. It won't work in this country. I'm not suggesting we go up against the army. We don't have the power. I'm just simply suggesting we have to be able to protect and defend what we value.
Yes.
What I'd like to contribute, I think, is in terms of economics, what you can do right now. My brother, please, if you could stand up for a moment. Here's a brother with multiple businesses, and he shared a book with me, a yellow book. Do you have that book? Please tell me what that book is called, brother. And is that for Baltimore or Maryland in general? Okay, now that's the first step you could do right now is get that book and begin to put your money where it belongs. You see, that's the first solution. Because what we have to do, and when I visit communities, the most important thing I think I contribute to a community is to allow, because I am not saying anything that has not been taught in this community for generations. Sometimes when someone from the outside comes in, sometimes the community listens, as opposed to the person that's been here kicking this information for generations, and they may be 80, 85 years of age, and they've been teaching this information. So I see part of my role as coming in to at least support what's going on here first. And right now you have a guide where you can begin to look at. So if you need to go to a tailor, you need to go to an engineer, that book will help you out. You need a barbershop, you need a store where you can buy food. That book can help you. That's one of the first steps in this. Again, going back to the book that Dr. T'shaka is talking about, reading that book and understanding that, the work of Claude Anderson, because we got to read. We have to study this. Because I don't know if we really understand who we are as a people. I really don't. I think that we are far greater. We're almost like a giant, like a sleeping giant that all the little Lilliputians are looking at and hoping that that giant never wakes up. In this room right here, see, I'm looking for 3 out of 100 right now. I don't know who the 3 are. Good news, bad news. Dr. King was right. We are going to get to the promised land. Bad news is a lot of us ain't going to make it. Because if our minds are where they are, I'm sorry, maybe like Erykah Badu said, maybe next lifetime. But we have to be serious about this. And when you're ready to spend your money, you've got to hold off on your money. And maybe you might have to spend a little bit more with a brother or sister because they don't have the ability to buy en masse like some of these other places have. So it's just a decision that we have to make. Another piece as it relates to education and economics for our children is I've been on a piece where I develop within the community after school programs or whatever type of programs where you take a community people who are engineers, you take people who are the tailors, chefs, somebody owns a catering business. And what you do is that you take the qualities of what they learned in education. Every room that has water is a science laboratory. Your kitchen, your bathroom, I call them hydrotherapy rooms. When you're cooking food, that's a science class. To dissolve salt, to evaporate the water and the salt is still there, well, the salt never went anywhere. That's a lesson that we teach in science. Math class. What's math in terms of engineering? Bring somebody in who works as a plumber and be able to adapt the math and science that they're learning in the classroom to an everyday career. When they took shops out, they knew what they were doing when they took shop out of schools with us. Typing. One of the cornerstones to college is writing papers. If you know the keyboard, you cut down your time doing a paper by about 45 minutes per hour when you have memorized the board. And if you by chance don't know the board, get a program called the Mavis-Bacon program that they teach you the keyboard. That's fundamental. I learned that in typing class. So take our children and expose them to the types of jobs that they can go out while you're hiring the community to come in, and maybe a group of homeschoolers or maybe an after-school program will bring a brother in who's a tailor, who might teach basic sewing, how to change a light bulb. When you get in your bathtub, get a stoppage. Well, you don't always have to call a plumber for that. Teach the child how to do it themselves. See, we're very loyal people when it comes to our money. And I don't know if we really realize, having studied history, how really great we are as a people. And the reason why 3 are very good, because I think that this room right here, I've never been into numbers. I've never cared about numbers. I've done presentations where there's 2 people in the room, and one of them is the next speaker. So you know how many people I'm talking to. I've never been in numbers because I've spoken in groups where 200 people showed up, and by the end of the presentation, I wish 198 never came. I'm looking for quality, commitment. Commitment is what builds nations. By the way, baby daddies don't build nations. We have to have a commitment. See, I used to walk around the earth, and back in the day when I had a job, my shopping bags used to say Shirt King and Mad Hatter. Okay? Now I got bags, Toys R Us, Kids R Us. Because my money goes to the family now. And sometimes as a man, or let's just open it up to any gender, it's hard to learn how to share. But the greatest part of being a man or a woman is to learn how to share. My checks don't belong to me anymore. When I get a check, my first thought is, what do the children need? What does my wife need? And then if there's a little crumb left over, maybe I can get a couple quarters. But the first thing that we have to do is understand, baby daddies, a nation is only strong as its weakest family. And so on a social level, just I believe as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taking Malcolm through the process of helping him understand, well, brother, you've been single for a long time, but I think it's about time that you get yourself a mate. It's time for you to build your nation. See, because a family is like a cell, neutron, proton, electron. But atoms make up bodies. And so the body of the nation is made up by the cells of our families. And so these are the types of things that I think on a social level that we have to start to do. And politically, we have to go back to Ma'at, because I'm dealing with governance, not politics. Politics is a reality. That's a social structure. But to me, when you're dealing with politics, I'm looking at governance. And I look to the laws of Ma'at as it relates to what governance is. And governance is service to the people. To me, most people run away from. Real people who understand what governance is run away from the responsibility of being a leader. See, you got right. What we have here, this is all pimpdom out here. The great majority of politicians are delegating people to do things because they're not going to do the job. I've always admired generals who are on the front line. See, to me, a leader is someone who says, I have a job to do. Will you help me do it? I like them on the front line, moving forward, as opposed to being in the back, letting everybody else catch the heat. I think we have quite a few people in this room. And I think if each and every one of us were to adapt certain principles, starting right now, I think that we could make a change. In fact, the change is already being made by the wonderful folk that have brought us in. All we got to do is keep on keeping on, and in our minds understand this one thing. It ain't over till we win. Marcus Garvey died with a pen in his hand, 1940, in London, preparing his bank. That's the type of resilience. And when I feel that I'm having a problem, that I might have a little bit of difficulty, I pray to the spirit of my hero, Harriet Tubman. And I ask her, whatever spirit was in you, I ask you to put that spirit in me. And then all of a sudden, a flush comes over me. And I get shamed of myself for even thinking I have a hard time. Considering what our ancestors went through to get us here, I'm shamed to think we can't do this. I'm doing this as a sacred obligation. And we all have to look at it like that. Our ancestors did not bring us this far to leave us like this. They did a magnificent job. And by the way, you don't have to go back to Egypt for a classical African civilization. You don't have to go back to the Moors. You can go right back into our neighborhoods today. You can go to the hip-hop nation. That's a classical African civilization. The civil rights movement was a classical African civilization. Our life on the plantation was a classical African civilization. We sat on thrones. They may have given us little pieces of wood, but we made that wood thrones. Family, we are a great people. We just got to wake up and realize it.
I don't know whether to start with the nature or explanation of the problem or to talk about the solution first on this one. When you talk about our politics or economics, we really have to look at the social psychology, because all of these are driven at the level of individuals, at the level of community. We have to look at the definitions that we give, the beliefs that we have about each other in terms of how we act. So when we talk about the economy, we have to understand, as Dr. Amos Wilson said, that an economy is a set of relationships that exist between people long before it's currency. So our problem isn't the currency. $1 trillion indicates that. According to some, we're the 7th or 9th largest economic nation on this planet. So the problem isn't the currency, the problem isn't the money, if we want to call that money. The problem is the set of relationships that we have, how we see each other, how we treat each other, the lack of trust that we have for each other, our inability to see each other as people who we want to support. And there's a black pages in Georgia for folks to know where the black businesses are, but it goes and sits on the bottom of the yellow pages and the white pages. It's not being used, it's not seen as a priority. We don't see ourselves as a priority. We don't see ourselves as the people who need to be built first and foremost. John Ray Clark said, there's nothing wrong with being selfish, and in fact, we need to be selfish. Sometimes you're supposed to take care of your own children before you go and take care of other people's children, and if your children, when they're full and everything's done for them, then you can go and assist, assuming you have some reserves. But our children are supposed to come first, and our priority are other people's children, obviously. We fund other people's children through college, we fund other people's children's homes, we fund other people's children's everything, and our children are left without because of how we see ourselves. We are culturally misoriented, to use Kobe 𝐾𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐭's term. We see other people's priorities as more important than our priorities. We see their definitions. It's like you're playing, they say, this board game, this game that you're playing, and you're playing by somebody else's rules. You don't understand the rules, and you don't know how to play. But you want to play, and you're losing. This isn't uneven playing field. These are different playing fields. And there's nothing wrong with different playing fields as long as the playing field that we're on, we've created for ourselves. So the problem for me is the set of relationships that we have for each other and the lack of trust in those relationships. And that is something that is new. When I was a child, that didn't exist, that degree. I looked around the neighborhood. I didn't know one black woman. I didn't know one black man, whether she was a quote-unquote homemaker or not. I didn't know any of them that didn't have 3 or 4 jobs. And of those 3 or 4 jobs, 3 of those 4 was going to be working through bartering or interacting with other people in the community, on the same block, in the same neighborhood. We did for each other. We took care of each other. We made finances work. Our burial societies, they were designed to assist us, not to take money out of the community. And we have increasingly lost that as we have adopted someone else's extreme individualism. We have adopted a policy and interpretation of our personal selves that does not reflect anything African, anything communal whatsoever. And now we're trying to champion this as if this is human. As if this is the way that we are supposed to be as a people. We're supposed to be selfish. We're supposed to be greedy. We're supposed to not trust each other. This is the way we're supposed to act toward each other. And then we ask, why are we in this shape? Why are we in such horrible shape right now, economically, and we have over $1 trillion in spending power? So we need to ask ourselves, what is an economy? Same thing applies with politics. There's no accountability. We elect someone to office, electoral politics, and do not hold that person accountable, and that person knows that they don't have to do whatever it is that we want because we're not paying their bill. So they don't have to be accountable to us. We don't hold those people who we put into positions of power accountable. That's a different kind of politics. To me, that's not the way politics should be defined. You have to understand that when you have societies of large numbers of people, that you have to have some form of government. When you have mass numbers, you have to have some form of government, primarily because you can't ask everybody the answer to every question that comes up. You'll never get anything done if everybody has the vote and there has to be a debate on everything. I understand that. We have to look at this in terms of grassroots organization. Politics, that's the organization, galvanization, organization, distribution of power. Power. And we're not in control of our power. We're not making decisions for ourselves. We're not making decisions that benefit the community. He's talking about this is something that is in the dirt, the people whose hands are in the dirt, the people who do the work. That's where the decisions are supposed to come from. That's where the guidance is supposed to come from. But we're taking such great pride in being able to point out that person and that person and that person in that office, or that person and that person and that person holding this position or doing responsible for this, and nothing is still being done for us and the people who are supposed to be helped. This is what we're supposed to be about as a people. African people are about the business of character. We look out for the least of us. The person in the traditional community who was the most honored was the individual who gave the most to strangers without the expectation of a return. This is us. When I was coming up, was it Mrs. Gates? Down the block, around the corner, made biscuits that you could not even imagine. And every child in the neighborhood knew her address. And most of us would go home to dinner full. And our parents understood. What we didn't know was that our parents were feeding Mrs. Gates flour and salt and everything else that she needed to make those biscuits. But she was the most honored person. She probably had the least education of anybody in the community. But she was the most honored because she cared the most for people. Somebody who had nothing go by her house, they're going to get fed. What happened to that? Why are we so self-hating? Why are we so competitive in a non-cooperative way? Almost like communal hate. It's almost like that. We hate to even speak to each other. Even in the South now, it's become a problem. We have to reverse this thinking. And we have to start small. And every time I say this, I run into problems because people want this big, major, instant problem where everybody and set up these boards and we're going to be. No, we need to start in our homes and start acting like we love each other. We need to find other families and work with them like we love each other and develop trust. You don't develop trust by saying I love you. You develop trust by the experience. I loan you this, you return it to me like it was. I loan you this, and we develop trust. Trust is something that develops over time. That's how I know I can trust you, same way that marriage develops over time. Okay. As the conversation was going on, I was thinking about what we do at Akabit Institute. And it's not because this was planned, it's because this is the way Eni and I were taught. Our house is being remodeled. It's being remodeled for the last 15 years. Everything has been taken apart and is being put back together. Some folks have been there. They've seen the work that goes on there. So there's carpentry, there's bricklaying, there's plumbing, there's electrical work, there's yard work, there's a raised bed. All of these things are being done at our house, but none of those things are being done without the students' involvement. If I change a light switch, they are there. If I have to change a washer in the sink because the sink is leaking, they are there. The wood that was used for the porch, they had to calculate how many tongue and groove pieces of wood would be needed in order to cover that porch. When we put lights in the hallway, they had to be equidistant. I mean, equal distance between each light with half of the distance each end. They had to do the mathematical problems. Somebody has a vehicle in the neighborhood and something is being done to that vehicle, change oil, change tire, change whatever. The children are there. We were even hoping to come across a brother or a sister who knew how to hotwire a car because our children need that skill. You never know. Our children need all of these skills. And where are they supposed to get these skills? They're supposed to get them at home. There's no reason why the mamas in Atlanta, and they are about the business of doing this. I can't say all of that is bad about the conscious community in Atlanta. Some of the mamas in Atlanta, they know how to sew. So they're pulling together some of the daughters who want to sew, and they're teaching them how to sew. So they have a sewing circle every week, and they take orders from people in the community. And in one room in this house, they're setting up racks, so all the clothes that they make are there. And when we need clothes that reflect us, we go to that house and to that room, and we make purchases. That's building an economy. That's building trust. That's being culturally reoriented. We have to get how we see ourselves correct first. We have to come to the belief that Garvey put forth so well. The idea of complete and total independence. Sovereignty requires you control input, throughput, output. The whole shebang, all of it, all of it. If you're sovereign, then no one else should have anything that you need. They might have something that you want, but they should never have anything that you need. All of your needs should be supplied by you. Everybody needs to look deep into their heart, deep into their experience, and find out what they're good at, and find a child to show them how to do it. You can't, it's bad, and the economy is getting worse. We made it through the Depression because we knew the land. You can't eat your Lexus.
Can I just add something? The question was, what was the state of the socioeconomic political condition of blacks? So that's what I addressed. Now what's being addressed is what's the cause? And I just want to briefly throw this out because you got to be very precise about this. Very, very precise. I mentioned this the last time I was here. I had a class about 25 years ago, and an 18-year-old student asked me, if our culture is so great, why is it unraveling so fast? And I gave her an answer. It was a simple answer, simple question, simple answer. Then I went home and I realized I didn't have the answer. And I felt bad, not because I gave her the wrong answer, it was unintentional. I went to class the next class and apologized. I said, I didn't know. But I've been in the movement over 30 years. It hit the books over 30 years. I didn't know. You know what I mean? And so this is what I want to give you as an analysis of what's causing this, because causes dictate solutions. And you've got to be very accurate about the cause of a problem if you're going to come up with a solution. I'm sitting at home in Richmond, and James Baldwin came on. He was dead by then. Baldwin was sharp enough, he beat Malcolm in one debate. Because Baldwin would always come from the street level, just use street logic. And Baldwin said, since the late 60s, powerful hostile forces hit the black community we were not prepared for. And that gave me half the answer. I said, oh, well, I'm too close. I'm in this. I teach, go in the community and organize, but I'm too close. I got half of it. Okay, I got that. So I'm sitting in my study one night, and I still don't have the full answer. I'm saying, what happened? And I mentioned when I was doing the presentation today, my best stuff has come from the spirit. A lot of you don't really get it. I'm not really talking spirit. I'm not talking about I got inspired or somebody gave me some information. And so I'm sitting in my study one night and I said, what happened? And I'm feeling very humble. The only time I've had these spirit experiences is when I've been very humble. When I've recognized I'm ignorant, I don't have the answer, you know? And when I have a spirit experience, I see a light. My priest, Ifeyemi, who's into Ifa, he said this kind of transference hardly ever happens now. Usually people have dreams, it's intuition. Me, it's the light. The mother principle is driven by a big light. This is small light, but this is a key light. And it's telepathic. I don't hear any speech, but it speaks to you without words. And so what it said to me, a choice between two cultures. So I put it together. Since the late 60s, hostile forces have hit the black community. When you see my audios out there, videos, I did a thing in London in 2005 where I saw now these hostile forces didn't just hit the black community in the U.S., it hit Africa, hit the Caribbean. And it's hitting Europeans in this country right now. Because whatever hits us will eventually affect them. Put drugs in the black community, be in the white community. Put us in a position where we're marginalized economically, you will be too. You know what I mean? So what it meant was, since the late 60s, manufacturing jobs were taken out of the country. In Africa, since the 80s, structural adjustment hit Africa. Structural adjustment hit the Caribbean. And what did that say? Give up everything you own and give it to private business. That impoverished Africa. That cut out free education, free medical care. In this case, the jobs left the country. And when the jobs left the country, the black man left the family. And then what happens is black communities are shut down. Drugs are put in the black community. Leadership is knocked off. And then there's manipulation, this Ford Foundation thing I went into. Manipulation of leadership. A new leadership emerges. The point is this. The forces that hit us put us in the position of choosing between our culture and theirs, but we weren't conscious that that's what was happening. The forces led to that. We weren't conscious that we had a culture in most cases, so we weren't clear about what the choices were that we had. So what he's referring to is the fact that before that, elders raised us in the community. Before that, we had extended family communities. Before that, there was respect between young and old. It wasn't perfect. There was a lot of problems in the black community. And most of our youth weren't in prison before that. You know what I mean? And so the point is, I'm saying that to say this. If these forces put us in a position, and this is true in Africa as well, and in Jamaica. I was having a conversation in Jamaica about this. And Rastafarianism is the conscious culture in Jamaica. It's got a lot of defects, but it's the most conscious thing going. Under Rastafarianism, old Rastas are the example for younger ones. But now what's happening, because of the force of money, you have younger Rastas, more prosperous than the older ones. The good thing is they're looking out for them, but now they're dictating to them. What's happening here is the forces have driven a wedge between the young and the old. Here's the biggest number. If you don't have a daddy, and if your economy is not employing you and taking care of you as it once did, though not completely, it once did, your loyalty goes somewhere else. And it goes to wherever you can get a cent to pay the rent. And that's been the drug traffic. It's been, thinking you can become a basketball player, that you can get rich quick. It's been a host of things. So the point is, if these forces have put us in a position of choosing between two cultures, in Africa, you have wars in Africa where children are used to kill their own parents. You understand? Now you want to talk about stepping out of culture? Or in Sierra Leone, when I was in Ghana about 15 years ago, a brother was a driver in Sierra Leone from Ghana. He had his own cab company. And these little gunmen come up. Now, these little gunmen had been kidnapped from their own families and turned against their own people. And so he has to step out, turn his cab over to these little kids. And then a little kid comes up and tells a little girl, give her your baby. Says, why? I'm going to kill you. Boom, blows her away. These forces, in this case, most of these forces are driven by corporations. The main thing that's leading to cultural choices shifting in the wrong direction is corporate. If you look at Africa, the wars that occurred in the Congo, millions of Africans have died. These are corporate mineral wars going on. They're paying for it. But then Africans are doing it. African states are sending in people. They're doing it. So it's causing a cultural shift. My point is this. If that's true, then you better understand your culture has got to be linked to every organizing thing you do. Your economics better have a cultural base to it. Your politics better have a cultural base to it. Your religion does, but you better be conscious of what that cultural base is. Your family has got to have a cultural base to it. And it's your popular culture along with this ancient culture. That's why you saw me driving this thing today. This is clear. This is as clear as day and night. And if that's correct, then it means the first agenda item has got to be the revitalization of your culture. It's got to be an African-centered, in this case, New African cultural renaissance. We got to raise it. We need it in the Caribbean as much as we need it here. Except in the Caribbean, they know they have a culture, they just don't know it's African. We don't even know we got one, let alone that it's African. A few of us do. Most of us don't. And you're in war and you don't even know your strengths, chances are you don't know you're at war.
So, nice hot. So, there's no way we can complete all the questions, but make no mistake about it, the answers that the three of them provided, it covers these questions anyway. They done hit every question that I want to touch on, so it's one particular one that I think is very vital, and this will be the last question. I want to keep the time and get out of here by 8 o'clock. So this is going to be the last one, and this question is African spirituality essential to African redemption?
I think we have to look at spirituality and what it is. We have to remember we're speaking the English language. And we have to understand that in responding to that question, we have to get rid of all notions of what we might perceive spirituality to be within the context that we speak English. Spirituality is, I look at it, for instance, this way. Spirituality has to be defined, redemption has to be defined in order to be able to answer the question. When I look at cosmology, cosmogenesis, genesis meaning the beginnings, cosmos of the cosmos, the beginnings of the cosmos, I focus very much on that. In fact, one of the big struggles, workings, minds, visiting scholars, specifically Professor Clark, but others also, Dr. Hilliard, Nana before, Dr. Ben. I mean, I went to many when I was developing the curriculum, the written one in the 80s. My question was, where do we begin our study of ourselves? Of course, we knew it wasn't going to be 1492, and questions became, well, do we study it from the pyramids? Of course not. How about the origins of life in Africa? Well, that's when it started to get very interesting, because not even there. So what we did is we dared to look at how our ancestors perceived them coming into existence. And as we began to do that, we began to go deeper back into understanding something that Dr. T'shaka said. And that is that he said we are spirit, having a physical experience. I think that's what you said. And normally I say we are the creator having a human experience. But where do you begin that study? You begin that study before the beginning began. And that's radically what Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop was telling us in chapter 17 of his book, Civilization or Barbarism. That is what Dr. Theophile Benga was telling us in his African Pharaonic Philosophy, which came out as an essay in Egypt Revisited, edited by Dr. Van Sertima. And what he said is that our ancestors dared to think about what existed before existence existed. And he said that was a quantum leap. Quantum means small, but it's a stargate. It's a stargate through an area that you'll never come back to again. So when our ancestors dared to think that, what existed before existence existed, they gave it a name that they called the Nun. Every major faith system talks about waters. And the concept is, as it relates to spirituality, we think of it this way. There's a vast ocean that we call the universe. That universe is the Nun. Everything that comes out that is ordered and arranged, which would be atoms and molecules, and I could do a whole class on the periodic table of elements and atoms and show you exactly how perfect the universe is. You know what troubles me more about our community not understanding and respecting math and science? Is that they don't understand that it's a beautiful thing. Math and science is beautiful. It's so exact. It's so wonderful. But that's why they got us afraid of it. And that is why they will never attempt to allow a woman, specifically a sister, to ever. Because sisters, you invented it. You invented math and science. What reason does a man have to count? Or what reason does a woman have to count? You had to prepare for your life cycle. I'm talking about many millions of years ago. I'm not talking about recent. So when we're talking about spirituality, we have to go back to these types of concepts, because until the sister that we are interacting with understands her role in mathematics and science, because you started numbers, you started counting. Make a long story shorter, you began to look up in the heavens and saw that there was a celestial body that went through the same 28, 29, 30-day cycle. You noticed that it, like you, went through 4 phases. So then you developed the lunar calendar. Every calendar, the sidereal calendar, the 2,160-year calendar, the great 26,000-year calendar, the one we have, 365.25, are all based on the lunar calendar that sisters created. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm troubled because that type of knowledge could open up other doors of understanding that could help us take care of a lot of the stuff we're talking about as a challenge. We got to study. We have to, as Dr. Hilliard did in Reawakening the African Mind, we got to go back to Sabah. We got to understand what it was that's going on. And in the Shabaka stone, the Memphite text, it is written, our ancestors went through a whole process. But for as long as Western civilization imposes on us the concept you can separate the sacred from the science, we will never get it. Spirituality is unseen science, and science is seen spirituality. They're two sides of the same coin, but if we get into this concept of that we think that we have to do a certain thing a certain way or else God will not be happy with us, you are God having a human experience. People talk about that they want to go to church to have a conversation with God. I go to my bathroom and look in my mirror and have a conversation with God. This is the way the African mind functions. And as Dr. T'shaka said, I have the utmost respect of every religion. I throw away no holy book because every holy book is a corrupted version of an African book. So I don't have a problem understanding that. But until we get to the fact that spirit is energy, it is patah. It is energy that reinvigorates and makes us act. When we get spirituality, we will redeem ourselves.
I'm trying to think about this in terms of spiritual warfare. That's a term that Mama Rumba has been using a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, and I know that she didn't necessarily originate it, but it's what she's doing with it that is incredible. We're at war. Pure and simple, we're at war. And if a huge chunk of who we are is missing from that, then we're bound to lose. I wrote to a number of brothers, or should I say they pretty much wrote to me, who were incarcerated over a number of years, and we still communicate. One of the things that I discovered was that they didn't want to talk about spirit. They didn't want to talk about spirituality. They didn't want to talk about anything having to do with quote unquote religion. And the main reason was because they were very angry, as I was when I was younger, at the Creator for having put us in this position as if we didn't do it ourselves. So we end up cursing what we are, who we are, what our essence is. If we want to win this war, we have to bring spirit back in. But in bringing that, we have to realize that it is us. We're spirit. That was like a contradiction for me when I was a little child, at least in my mind. I couldn't understand how the Creator could be somewhere out there, and yet the Creator is omnipresent everywhere. That made no sense to me as a little child. If we understand that, if we understand that this is a vital force within us, and that we have to use this to win this war, once we get to that point, we will be fine. Too many of us come into spiritual systems without losing the mentality that we had in other religions or other ways of thinking. So we look to spirituality. African spirituality is as an escape, where spirit is going to handle this for us. We don't have to do any work. We can just stop right now and just wait for the rapture or whatever it is that we're supposed to be waiting for, instead of actually doing the work. When you do the work, then you feel spirit. When you do the work, it's there, working right there with you, waiting for you to escalate and do even more. So it can give you all of the energy, all of the thought, everything that you need to complete this process, to do this work. We're still looking for something outside of us when it's right inside with us. So for me, it's so disappointing when I look around and I see us giving what is ours to other people, either our rituals or this power. Power is within you. Nobody can take your power away from you. Nobody can do that. And really, you can't give it to anybody else. You can relinquish using it, but you can't give it to anybody, or you can use it against yourself. And of course, your power is nothing but spirit. So for me, the solution is really simple, and it's really already been said. We have to act in ma'at, first and foremost toward ourselves. First and foremost toward ourselves, toward our family, toward our community, toward those who understand. And of course, while we're doing this, we can't be dumb enough to not understand that a lot of people do not understand. And they will take you for a fool, so you have to understand who knows and who doesn't know, and you have to act accordingly. You have to talk to the ancestors. That's what I do every day. That's the first thing I do every day. The first thing I do every day. I get up, wash my face, brush my teeth, and go talk to my ancestors. Sit down and we have a conversation about what I need to do today to be more like them. That's the nature of the conversation. And it comes back in all kinds of ways in terms of what I need to do. In the African tradition, it said, if you want to talk to the Creator, talk to the wind. Creator will hear. And we'll give you the answers, but you have to be looking for the answers. A lot of us aren't looking for the answers. We're looking for excuses, and we're looking for something or somebody else to do the work for us. If we're all of that, then there's nothing to stop us from doing what needs to be done. And I guess that would be the redemption part. We're redeemed when we're ourselves.
The question was, is African spirituality necessary for African redemption? First, there's no word in any African language for spirituality. There's no word either for religion. Religion is a Roman word. It means binding together paganism and Christianity. Africans don't have any revealed religions. They don't have a prophet that gave the word. They don't have a book that lists commandments, even though we have the 42 confessions of innocence from which the 10 commandments came from. They're not laws, because our God is viewed as just, and in the Judaic, Christian, Islamic tradition, they have to have all kinds of checks on people and on God, you know. But there is a word for spirit. There is a word for prayer. There is a word for praise. All African cultures are spirit-based, all of them. New African culture is spirit-based. It is the sine qua non of the culture. Spirit runs through every part of the culture. It is inseparable from the culture. So African people believe that that spirit is within them that makes them divine. The reason we're humanistic is we believe God's within us. That's why we treat other people humanely. That's why we oppose the war in Vietnam. Because, as Muhammad Ali said, the Vietnamese didn't call me the N-word. He knew, no Vietnamese lynched him. He didn't know that Marcus Garvey is the one that inspired Ho Chi Minh to go back. How many of you all knew this? To Vietnam to free his people. How many of you knew that? Garvey did. When Kwame Ture went to Vietnam to show his support for Ho Chi Minh, North Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh told him the story about how Garvey inspired him, and then he asked Kwame Ture, then Stokely Carmichael, of course I'm adding to this, "What's your black ass doing in Vietnam?" He didn't say that. He said, "What are you doing in Vietnam? You should be in Africa freeing your people." Meaning this little black man got this little yellow man to go back to Vietnam to kick the white man out. You need to go back to Africa, you know. But, you know, and by the way, Ho Chi Minh was a Confucius, spiritual, you know, highly ethical. When he died, put all his possessions in a duffel bag. He ain't black. He's highly moral. I don't care what your color is. I like Castro. He's got some ethics behind him. You know what I mean? So spirit is like at the key of it. Within New African culture, spirit drives it. Marx had a saying. He said that religion is the opiate of the masses. He had a point. Western Christianity has been an opiate. Judaism and Islam maybe to some point too, you know. But for African people, check it out. Nat Turner, who was a partial Christian and a traditionalist because he got his vision from dreams. He saw blood on the leaves. The Spirit talked to him. You understand? But he also called himself a Christian preacher. The point is, what he believed in was no opiate. It was no dope. It's kind of like Sitting Bull had a vision for doing in Custer. It came from a dream. It wasn't no opiate. It was liberatory. Y'all hear what I'm saying here? Do you know what I mean? So the thing is, in the civil rights movement, Mississippi, the roughest area to organize. I was in Mississippi in 1965. I was National Treasurer of Corps, just been elected, and voted white money out of Corps. I was a Garveyite, and so I got them to vote that they could no longer have any money coming from foundation, and Corps ended up broke, and I ended up the treasurer for a broke organization. And, you know, when we formed the National Black United Front, I was a Garveyite and insisted no money goes into the Black United Front, and none has. And the Black United Front has, remained conscious and honest as a result. So I'm in Canton, Mississippi, hooking up with a brother named 𝐘𝐸𝐿. He was one of the baddest organizers in the movement. You never heard of him. He was so bad that this redneck sheriff in Canton, Mississippi had a saying. He said, "I don't mess with 𝐘𝐸𝐿. 𝐘𝐸𝐿 don't mess with me." This is a redneck, tough little white boy, cop, sheriff, who would take you out and do anything he wanted to. But the rule was you couldn't arrest 𝐘𝐸𝐿 unless the sheriff arrested him, and only if he could whip him. They got out on that red road and fought. 9 out of 10 times 𝐘𝐸𝐿 whipped his butt. My point about Mississippi is this. It took more courage to be involved in the movement in Mississippi than anywhere else in the United States. My grandmother came from Mississippi. She told me what they do after slavery. They would bury you up to your neck and put honey on your face, and the ants would eat you alive. You hear me? That was Mississippi. But you know, when black people decided to stand up, the first ones that stood up, the only thing they were sure of is they would die. What inspired them? They said, the Spirit of God talked to me. It wasn't the Bible. The church didn't support them. It was the Spirit within them. That's what gave them the power to be involved in the movement. Fannie Lou Hamer. Look at Fannie Lou Hamer. She was a timekeeper on a plantation. She was a spirit woman. She was also a singer. You ever see her when she's singing? You can't see the eyes. It's like she's possessed. She was a spirit woman. You understand? Spirit has been key to it. King, in the midst of Montgomery bus boycott, he didn't choose to be no leader. He's in his kitchen. He's worried. He's thinking about leaving the movement. He said, the Spirit talked to me and told me that I got to stand up for my people. And so every time King would have a movement on a campaign, a movement meeting, he'd say, this may be the last time I'll see you. You know what I mean? King faced death. You understand? Malcolm, the same thing. His transformation was in part spirit, part political, part philosophical, part historical. You need to understand something. Your culture is spirit-based. Inside that black church, when things get hot, those are some of the people that will move behind you. We nationalists have got to stop speaking just to ourselves. We got to speak to the broader black community. And we got to get them to see that this culture they got, this is our original stuff. It's the most beautiful stuff we've created. Precious Lord. I ain't no Christian. Precious Lord, take my hand. It's the highest poetry we've created. Hip-hoppers are poets. But I'm going to tell you something. You want to see maximum poetry? Listen to Peace Be Still, James Cleveland. You understand? Huh? Civil rights movement was a singing movement, or the freedom movement. It was a singing movement. Why? Because it's spirit. We do everything to song and to dance. We make love to song. We dance to song. We fight to song. Malcolm made a mistake. He said Muhammad Ali didn't get his freedom, or he didn't win the heavyweight champion of the world through singing. He won it through swinging. Yes, he did. He sang to George Foreman. He constantly singing to George Foreman. Is that all you got? And one time, kissed him on his ear. And Foreman threw everything he could at him. That was the strategy. Muhammad Ali was scared of Foreman. Foreman was, at that point, a better fighter than Muhammad Ali. But he wore him out. And then he wore out his confidence. Fortunately, he didn't have to have a second George Foreman fight. You know what I mean? Huh? So he was singing and swinging with poetry. I'll take you to heaven in 7. You know? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, Muhammad Ali. What was the strength of Muhammad Ali? It was his spirit. The trainer of Mike Tyson, when he was telling Mike Tyson the greatness of Muhammad Ali, he said it was his character. That's a white boy telling him that. Damn right. Because when he faced George Foreman, he had wisdom and he had character. But more important, when he stood up on the war in Vietnam and said, hell no, I won't go, and gave up everything for that. You understand? It was spirit. You understand? So this spirit is at the heart of this. I want to end on this one, on teaching. The essence of teaching is touching the spirit. I don't care whether it's a classroom. I don't care whether it's teaching. I don't care if it's in the family. I don't care if it's between two lovers. I asked my wife, I met her in Britain, by the way. I met my wife when I was speaking at the commemoration of the 5th Pan-African Congress, 60 years after it happened. And the last house, because I always stay in community homes. And so the last home I stayed in was hers. So it was the ancestors, see, this is spirit here. You get this? It was an ancestor's gift to me. You understand? But key thing about this is this. In teaching, the greatest compliment I can get from a student is when they say, you turned my life around. When they say, there isn't a day when I don't think about what you've taught. The goal of teaching, whether as a parent, whether as a lover, because I was asking my to-be wife, I was asking her, what does love mean to you? And this is high spirit stuff. And she says, I want to grow. And I said, I got me a heavy woman here. Because what is the essence of living? It's growing. What's the essence of spirit? It's growing. What is the essence of God? It's growth. What are we here for? We're here to grow closer to God, to become more godlike. I don't care what your religion is or not. It's to become better human beings. So in teaching, the real goal, whether you're a teacher, a parent, whatever it is to touch the spirit. And touching the spirit is when you can get a person to come in contact with their their destiny, when they see why they're here. If you open somebody's eyes to that and you're not telling them why they're here, you don't know. You're just simply touching the spirit. And when somebody says you turn their life around, it's because you touched them in a way that it got them to look at themselves. And so in Kemet, Seba, S-B-A, because they really don't know how to speak Kemetic, but it's spelled S-E-B-A, means opening the door. It means the light. It doesn't mean giving people information that enlightens you. So, I think part of this is the way spirit works in transforming people is when you're embodying it. And if you walk it, that person may not walk in your path. You don't want them to. You want them to find their own path. But that is what inspires them to see the light. And that's the ultimate thing about this life on this earth, is the light. And I just want to say this. My experience with the light is the most beautiful experience of my life. I love black women. I wish I was polygamous. I really do. Because I know I could take care of a whole bunch of them. But I'm not. I'm a Oba T'shaka's child, and I can only have one, and that's all I want. And it saved me, too. It ain't my nature. But I'm going to tell you, as beautiful as black women are, and I think that black women are the finest women on the planet, and I think women is God's finest creation, but black women, I have a friend who teaches a course on male-female relationships. He uses car analogies, and so he'll treat a white woman as a Ford, a Latino woman as a Cadillac, and he treat a black woman as Rolls Royce. And what he says is, she's high maintenance, brother. My wife told me she was low maintenance. And when she told me that, I knew what it meant. It meant high maintenance, because I never heard no woman ever talk about maintenance, period. You know what I mean? But the point is this. My experience with the light is, as fine as all the black women I've ever seen, you can't touch the light. My experience with wisdom, the wisest masters, John Henry Clark, one of the wisest, can't touch the light. The unconditional love of your mother, as beautiful as it is, the unconditional love of the one above, there is no love like that. You hear me? And the peace. I'm a peaceful warrior, by the way. Most people don't get it, because I also had this frown and scare people, and a lot of my students get terrorized up to a certain point. And I definitely scare my enemies. At San Francisco State, if they wanted to scare the president or they wanted to scare any white professors, my friend who was vice president of student affairs, she would tell the whites, Shaka's coming. They say, oh, shit. But I'm not somebody that tries to scare people. It's not my intention. But I'm a peaceful person inside. I don't have any internal discord. I don't have no health problem. You got internal discord, you got a health problem. You know, you need to reconstruct your mind so your behind gets straight. You know what I mean? You don't need no discord. You need to cause discord. I delegate high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes. I don't get any. You know what I mean? But the point is, I'm a peaceful person, man. But I have never experienced the peace that I've experienced from the light. You hear me? That's spirit. So I'm telling you, I'm not prepared to leave this planet. I have a plan to live past 100. And I get my little regular checkups. I'm in the gym lifting weights. I do kung fu. I try and eat right. I try and treat people right and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And, you know, but the key thing is the spirit. I don't want to leave this planet before my time is up. And I'm going to try and get an extension when the time is up, because this is the learning place right here. But I know there's a place up there, and it's inside of you because you carry it inside yourself, that is the most beautiful place you can ever experience. And when you draw on that power here, you can do anything you want. That's right. You can do anything you want. So I would say the spirit is the essence of everything, and yet it's nothing. It's everywhere, and it's nowhere. And it is beauty supreme. Beautiful beyond description. The Yoruba have a description of God, Olodumare. They describe God as the one with superlative character. I said, what a beautiful description of God. Not the most powerful, obviously. The white boy likes to focus on that and then act like he's God. You know what I mean? But superlative, meaning free of all fault, free of all wrongdoing. You can't say that to anybody. Nobody on this earth. Yet that's what you should strive for. I mean, and that's what our people have strived for. And that's why you see me stressing this new African culture. I hope you get the point I'm making. Because everyday black folks I found to be the most beautiful people I've run into in my life. Everyday black folks. People with 8th grade educations, people with no education, but people who are kind and generous and wise and loving. You know what I mean? And that's the essence of being a human being. Spirit is your essence. It's the essence of everybody, but it's our cultural essence.
Well, give it up for the Bibles. Well, we really pushed it to the limit. 8 o'clock was our deadline, but there's no way you can just jump in there and stop the Bibles. So I'll deal with the back end on the back end. But I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it. We most definitely want to thank the 3 of you for coming out and sharing the wisdom. I got so much from all that you had to say. Your answers were concise, it was broad, and most importantly, it was instructive. I believe that's what we need. We need frameworks. We need models, frameworks, and we need to know what we need to be doing. But I wanted to put this question there about spirit, because when I walk around the city, because I'm from Baltimore, and I hear a lot of this reactionary fanaticism that I don't subscribe to. A bunch of nonsense rhetoric. I don't subscribe to it. We ain't trying to cultivate ourselves, so I wanted to bring in 3 individuals who I believe, who works that I have studied personally. So if anybody ever got anything from me, you'll credit it to them, because I studied their works. And that's why I bring them and I say read them, listen to them, because these are the ones that's doing the work and they understand. We had to transform ourselves from the inside out. Right. We had to study. You heard them, they said it just now. We got to study. We got to get in the room and study. You got to look in the mirror and see God in yourself. You got to understand, like the Bible just told you, you can't take that word spirituality and go into an African language and find a word for it. So throw the words out the window. Dig into yourself. That's what this is about. Learn who you are. It's culture. It's culture. The clothes you put on, the way you sleep at night, the way the woman you like, your preference, your food, your taste, it's all cultural. And all that has been given to us by someone else. It's our time now to give it back and choose what is rightfully ours. I want to thank all of you. You was a beautiful audience. I think our first annual symposium was a success. Yes. Give it up again. Hotep, because let's try to get out of here.